Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, namaste, bonjour, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, wherever you get your favorite shows. 3 amazing guests for you today. Madeline Claire Weiss will be here to celebrate What's Your Story? It's a personal development book for kids. Annalise Bubes will be here to celebrate Cloud Wonders. And later in the show, Tippy Bhan will be here to celebrate Mulu and Naanu. This episode is brought to you by Feliz Navidad. It's December of 2019, and Pittsburgh is covered in a terrible fog. Even worse, all of the reindeer get sick and they can't fly. Everyone in the North Pole is worried they'll have to cancel Christmas. But just when all hope seems lost, Santa's pet, Feliz Navidad, raises his paw to help. And while a dog is not quite a reindeer, Feliz is their last chance to save Christmas. This is a book about perseverance and grit. Feliz Navidad, the story of how Santa's dog saved Christmas. Get your copy today. Feliz Navidad by Ari and Rhea Helper. Join us right now from our nation's capital. Our guest is here today to celebrate. Her new book is called What's Your Story? Please welcome to the show, Madeline Claire Weiss. Madeline, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Delighted to have you on. We're always talking about stories and how powerful it is for us to talk and share with our stories with our kids. Talk to me about what's your story.
My story, I suppose we could start at particular points in time, but I'll pick this one.
Okay.
So my story starts as a mouthy little girl who, speaking of stories, you know, the Madeline book?
Yep.
She was not afraid of mice. She loved winter, snow, and ice. To the tiger in the zoo, Madeline just said, poo-poo.
Uh-huh.
And so did I, too many times, to my dad. I talked back, as they used to say. So when he passed away, and he was 42 years old and I was 15, people did not, at that time and place, talk to their children about the stories the children were making up in their heads about what happened and what it meant and what their part in it was. So I was kind of left alone with my own little story that it was all my fault for being what we used to call fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this one day at the cemetery when I broke down about my story about how all my fault it was. And my mother said, no, honey, it wasn't you. It was work. So no surprise, I now help busy people master their minds so they can live happier, healthier, more prosperous and productive lives for themselves and all the big and little people counting on them.
Yeah. So important. We've talked a lot here about, you know, a lot of families are stressed. Do I work myself to death so that my kids have enough money? There's enough money to send my kids to school, and my kid's is 5 years old now. So to get them to go to Harvard when they're ready, that's probably going to cost $250,000 a year, and so I have to be out of the house, I have to make all that money, and have to kill myself. And I think you're probably saying, nope,
Literally.
do that.
Literally.
Yes.
There are 120,000 work stress related deaths per year and 750,000 around the world. So when you say I have to work so hard, I have to kill myself. In some cases, and I'm here to say it doesn't have to be that way.
So how can we encourage and help the families listening to this get that balance so that they're taking care of their families, but also taking care of themselves?
So I hate to go this woo-woo on you right out of the gate.
Woo away.
Okay, so to really be present in the moment that you're in. What we know, for example, is that 75% of parents' main concern now is the mental health of their children. What are they thinking about when they're at work? Not necessarily their work.
Right.
And then when they go home, what are they thinking about when they're with their children?
Oh, I should have done this thing at work.
Yeah. So at school, at home, at work, wherever the kids and the adults may roam, there's a kind of sort of undisciplined distraction. Everybody means well. You know, the parents are trying really hard. The kids are trying really hard to do things well and get things right. But we have these ideas in our heads, which are stories, and I'll tell you why I think they're stories. So I'm going to lay some more big numbers on you.
Okay.
So what I understand is that I can barely even say this, 6 times 70 million zeros bits of information in the universe. If you can even fathom 6 times 70 million zeros, I can't even. But out of that, the human senses send 11 million bits of information per second to the brain. Out of that, we are conscious of 50 bits. I can't even say that with a straight face. 50 bits of information out of 6 times 70 million. So I always say anybody who thinks they know anything is sorely mistaken. Because what the brain does, we need to feel like coherent. We need to feel like not crazy. So what we do is we add things to the story, which is our perspective or our understanding of the world or what's going on in it. We add things. We selectively perceive things. We subtract things. We distort things. The mind is brilliant that way. It does whatever it needs to do to package a story that we can live with. And some people, but not enough people, know that they're doing that. And to know that we're doing that helps us to be able to do it better. Like if you're going to make up a story to live in, make up a good one.
Make up a good one. I like that. I like that. And hence the title of your book, What's Your Story?
Yeah, so what happened was my work was, even though I'm a mom and a grandmother and all of that, so, you know, I've gone through the school system and I've raised children and I love children. I was working primarily with adults. And the adults would say things to me like, why didn't somebody ever tell me any of this when I was 8? It would have saved me and everybody around me a lot of pain and trouble if somebody had just told me this when I was so much younger. And then, you know, my clients will talk to me about their parenting and about their children. And they're just like these little things that we could do about the mind and how the mind works. Little simple things. and I can give you an example.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So there was this woman, she worked for the Treasury and she traveled a lot. And her little 4-year-old, every time she would be getting ready to leave, would have a meltdown, right? And she would try to explain, well-meaning, coming from a really great place, good mom, explain to him why he doesn't have to feel that way, because it's going to be fine. Daddy's going to be here. Daddy's great. He's so much fun. You two will have the best time. I'm only going to be gone for however long. And she would tell him when she's leaving, when she's coming home, doing everything right. And the kid is wailing, can't even hear her. Because there's this thing, it's Dan Siegel's Whole Brain Child. I recommend that. I'm a fan of Dan Siegel's for a number of different reasons. But one of them is that he says you can't go as a parent or a teacher or any adult caring for a child. You can't go your left brain logic to the child's right brain meltdown. That kid can't even hear you. And if it hears you, it doesn't want to hear you. And it's like there's a disconnect. So a better thing to do is go your right brain to the child's right brain. So it's kind of like what they taught me when I was training for this work, is you meet the person where they are, and then you take them by the hand to where they need to go. So she tried that with him. And she would say to him, I know you're feeling worried and unhappy. And she would repeat back to him what he was saying to her. So he felt really, really heard. And it got to the point where it got very funny, because he would say to her, okay, fine, go. Daddy and I are going to whatever, because she met him. And it was calming. And then he could come to his own senses and see, she's done this before. She always comes back. Daddy's great. We're good. And he would dismiss her. So it was just this little teeny tweak that made all the difference in the world. So because of that, I figured if everyone's saying, why didn't somebody teach me this when I was 8? I figured, all right, fine. I'm going to write that book.
Great.
So that's.
Yep. What's your story? I love it.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience. My son was a little bit older, but he was always, when we would talk to him about something that he was doing, wasn't doing, it'd always be, well, you don't talk to my sister, and all of that. And finally, and we would never be able to deal with the issue that we wanted to deal with. And then finally I said to him, tomorrow night, it's a little bit late now, but tomorrow night, I'm going to sit down at 7:00. You're going to tell me every single thing that you're upset about, everything that I've done wrong. We're going to talk it out. And at the end of the talk, it doesn't matter how long it will take. But at the end of the talk, when we settle everything, that's it. You can't bring up any of the stuff from the past again. We're going to deal with it, and we're going to put it to bed. And the next day, 7:00 came around. His list of grievances was, I think, 2. And we set it down. But it was like you were saying, he was heard.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference. And it made his life a lot easier.
Yeah, so in the book, there's an instruction on how the child does this. So it's not just that the parents can do this with the child, but the child can do this with oneself. So I teach the child how to acknowledge first what they are feeling, and then to team up with the brain. So there's a breathing exercise that my adult clients do that puts the higher brain back online, because when we're flailing around emotionally, it should be good data. Emotional data is extremely important. I want to straighten out this myth. It's extremely important. In fact, there are studies that show that when the emotions are not part of the mix, the decision making is extremely faulty. So the emotions are supposed to be part of the mix as data, but they do not drive the bus. So when you can calm the emotion because the emotion has been addressed properly, acknowledged, then I'm doing this is the hand model of the brain. The higher brain, that's Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. The higher brain can come back online. So the emotions say, I don't know, there's something going on here. I don't know what. And by the way, it can be positive emotions also. I've had clients that this business owner who gets so excited when the investors flatter him that he can't think straight either. So it's not just negative emotions that knock the sense out of us, but also sometimes positive emotions. So when this is acknowledged, the emotional center, the higher brain comes back online and says, thank you for sharing. I got it from here. So we as individuals, adults, individual children, and then again, the instruction is in the book in the way that a child can understand it. But there's also a section in the book it's a workbook. So there's a section on inside relationships, meaning between us and our minds. And then there's a section on outside relationships between us and other people in our lives. And one of the hallmarks of parental burnout or any kind of burnout, all of it pretty rampant right now, is detachment. And so my idea for this book was to, sort of directly address the detachment by writing something that the kids and the parents could do together. So a lot of times the parent will say they're going to have quality time with their kid. And like we were saying earlier, they're kind of there but not there. But this is something that they can actually put their minds to together. So I'll give you an example. There's a man who's a VP of a financial services company, and I did some webinars for them on purpose-driven investment planning. And in the course of that, I said I was writing a kid's book, and he said, oh my God, I have kids. You have to let me know when that's out. So I did, and I sent it to him. And it was over the summer, and he said, this is so perfect. We're going on vacation. This can be an activity that we do together. I heard from him afterwards, and he said they had so much fun with it. And some of the things that really stood out for me was he said it gave the family a common language. And he said these two things that he notices his children, he catches them power breathing. I teach how this 30-second mindset reset that brings the higher brain back online. It only takes it's only 3 breaths. And he said he catches them doing that now when they're being a little rattled. But he said, I have to confess, it really helped me too. And now, this is the best part. He said the kids call him out when they catch him reacting instead of responding. So that was just like music to my ears, bingo, bingo.
That's perfect. This seems like a book that you wouldn't just want to hand to your kid. This is something that it is perfect for families to do together.
I'm turning that off so we don't be intruded upon again. Yes, exactly. And that was the whole idea.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
We should tell people you're not just a woman who's sitting in her apartment, had this idea and wrote this book. You actually have the credentials behind you to let people know that you know what you're talking about. Tell us about your background.
I started off in college as an early childhood major.
Uh-huh.
And went on to philosophy and then morphed over into psychology, and then found myself as administrative director of a group mental health practice. And then I realized I'm running a business and I don't know anything about business. So I went to business school. So I got an MBA. And then before I went to college, by the way, after my father passed away, I was concerned about my mother and the finances and all of that. And so I went to the University of Pennsylvania School of Medical Technology. So that was my first job. And then I worked for the USDA Biological Control Lab. So it was all like blood and bugs and all that kind of stuff. And then I realized I really wanted to work more directly with the people. So I went to social work school, and then I was running this group practice and went to business school. There was another transition that I think is important for our conversation, which is that though I was a classically trained through the Harvard system, I'm very proud of the early training that I got in psychodynamic psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
I read a book called How People Change by a psychoanalyst, Dr. Alan Wheelis. And the essence of the book was how people change, they just do. So the earlier training was more insight oriented. Like you'd sit there for as long as it took, which could be decades or forever, waiting for the big aha that then would change your life. Mm-hmm. And it sort of became a pet peeve of mine that a lot of what was supposed to be treatment was really just playing Ain't It Awful, and nothing ever changed. Mm. So I became a board certified executive career and life coach. I took the training and had to pass an exam for that. But I went to that expense and trouble because I really believed that it had to be more future oriented. Mm-hmm. So I always tell my clients, we'll talk about your past just enough to get the job done. So whatever we can get from that helps us in the present and the future, we'll do. But we're not getting stuck there. Right. The job is not back there. The job is your gorgeous future. So this is the book that came before the kids' book. So
too great.
Yeah, so the job is creating that really great life that you want and maybe don't believe yet you can have, but I've seen enough to know that that's possible.
It's wonderful that you've created a kids book so people can start working on those skills at a very young age.
It was the idea.
Yeah. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about What's Your Story, find out more about Getting to Great, and find out more about you.
Okay, so it's, I'm happy to tell you it's all in one place.
Excellent.
If you go to madelineweiss.com, all my social links are there. There are hundreds of free blog posts, which you can search by topic. That power breathing exercise I mentioned, which can be your best friend forever, this little 30-second thing, there's a tab that says Power Breathe. So that's a PDF that can be downloaded from there. I also have some online courses. There's a button for that. And I offer a free strategy session. So anyone who wants to, talk more personally about how all of this applies in their life, I'd be happy to hear from them.
Wonderful. We've had a really eye-opening time speaking to the author of What's Your Story? Our guest has been Madeline Claire Weiss. Madeline, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Jed.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Join us right now from Austin and the great state of Texas. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut children's book is called Cloud Wonders. Please welcome to the show, Annalise Bubes. Annalise, how are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me, Jed. It's great to be here.
Delighted to have you on. Cloud Wonders, what a neat name for a title. Tell us all about the book.
Yeah, so the book is all about clouds, and it really follows a boy and his mom as they take time together and just lay down on the grass and look up at the sky. And the main story just follows along as they point out different shapes within the sky, different clouds. It starts with the boy kind of like not seeing anything, just clouds. And then his mom starts to encourage that imagination by pointing out a crab-shaped cloud in the sky. And it's just a fun kind of rhyming story that takes them through looking at the different shapes and using imagination and creativity. And they see, a school bus, a choo-choo train, a race car, a hockey stick, all sorts of different shapes. And then towards the end of the book, it really sort of kind of pivots from, just looking at clouds and using your imagination to also highlighting just how calming nature can be and how great it is to get outside and just pause from your busy day to day. And so it kind of follows along as the mom, reiterates to the young boy that, if you're ever feeling kind of stressed or if you're ever feeling kind of sad, like come outside and look up at the sky and you'll find yourself just feeling a bit more at peace. So, and then towards the end of the book, it kind of comes full circle and the boy feels that calmness within his body. And so, the main kind of goal of the book is just to encourage people to get outside, use their imagination, but then also just find that joy and that peace that you can get within nature. So that's the kind of premise of the story.
Wonderful. I'm almost 100 years old, and we didn't have all the screens and the technology that kids have now, but we had the sky, and we would spend hours, and not just with my mom, the guys and, that were roaming the hood back in the day. We would just sit and find things in the sky, and it was kind of like looking at a giant screen with all these animated shapes moving in front of our eyes.
Totally. I think that was sort of the point, or what inspired me too. I have two young boys, one is 4 and one is 2. And, today we, like you said, we are so inundated with information and consuming, whether it be on our phone or screens or, just work and life. And I was inspired at a time where, we ourselves were going through something kind of stressful. And so I found a lot of just like peace, just kind of looking up. When you look up, you sort of naturally find yourself like taking a deep breath and you sort of unclench your jaw, your shoulders kind of relax. And so, it was definitely to inspire adults too, just to get outside and look up. And then of course, with your kids, we're always looking at ways to kind of like regulate. And so just stepping outside and not looking down, at all of our things and our phones and stuff, and just taking a second to look up, and you just kind of find yourself, just feeling that sense of peace of it.
Yeah. I was just down in the Dominican Republic for my godson's wedding, and my beautiful wife and I were walking back from the beach back to our room, and I saw a cloud that looked an awful lot like Godzilla.
Did you point it out?
I didn't. We were with other family, and they were speaking Spanish, and I just thought it would be very inappropriate and just out of character for me to first off try to say that in Spanish just to interrupt the conversation. So I just enjoyed it myself.
Yeah, what is that translation in Spanish?
I had no idea.
I have to look that up.
You know, one of the things that I had an epic cross-continent drive a few years ago, and went back and forth across the continent. And when I was out west, one of the things that just kind of blew my mind away was how big the sky was. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds dumb because it's the same sky that we have in Boston, but in Boston, when you look up at the sky, you see the sky, but there's all these buildings around us and a lot of trees and everything. When you get out in the West, especially as you're going through the desert in New Mexico and Arizona, there is nothing but sky, and it's just awe-inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's expansive. I mean, I think when I wrote the book, we were in California at the time, and so we didn't have, skyscrapers and we could really just get that really great view. And so I think interestingly, like the clouds are actually, I feel like even bigger here in Texas. And so we've done a lot more cloud watching here. But yeah, I think that was part of the book too. The title, like Cloud Wonders, there's this like wonder to the sky, and there's, it's sort of magical in a way. And that was part of the inspiration behind the title too, just for young kids, pointing them to it and just the awe of it, to your point. And I remember when I was little, we went to Yosemite, and we would do like an overnight, and we would camp out, and even I remember looking up and first seeing all the clouds, and then, as it got darker, all the stars that are there that you just don't see within the city. So yeah, I think there's so much to it. Like I said, we're constantly looking down, it feels like. And so the goal is just to help people just remember, look up. It's big, and it reminds you that like you're just a small, just a small piece of this great big world. And sometimes that's comforting when you're feeling stressed and like in your own bubble.
Yeah.
Things that can stress you out. So
this movement to get people to appreciate the sky and just be aware of it, it's been something I was made aware of. There was a meteorologist here, a legendary meteorologist here in Massachusetts, Don Kent, who was the favorite meteorologist for decades here in Boston. And he started back in the 70s and 80s just a campaign to get people just to look up in the sky and be aware of it. And he didn't articulate the kind of calming aspects of doing that, but I bet that was part of his goal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sure. What was his name?
Don Kent.
Don Kent. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like I said, just like physically too, you just feel this kind of like, feels good just to kind of look up and like stretch your neck and your back and like all of that. So I think the goal is to help people do that. And also I know your podcast is encouraging people to like spend time with your kids and read to your kids. And so, the goal is to obviously read the story with your kid and definitely like go through the different shapes and have them point them out, and also have them, make sounds or whatever for what they see within the pages of the book. But then also on top of that, like go outside, put a blanket on the grass and just like look up with your kids and spend that quality time together.
Yeah, absolutely. I've shared here on the on the podcast, we used to have this beautiful, beautiful, huge oak tree in our backyard. And that is a place where we would oftentimes go out and lean against the tree, me and my kids, and read the stories and look up at the sky and then look up into the tree and imagine all the creatures that were living and sharing our space. And I think that's so important. And like you said, it is really calming. And whatever you have, whatever stresses and strains of the day just kind of seem to wash away when you're spending that time with your kids.
They really do. And I think as kids, that's what they want too. I think I try to read a lot about how to, connect with your kids and all of that. And usually most, studies they all come back to kids just want your time. And so they just want your presence, and easier said than done, again, in these when you're working and everything and life is just busy. But just a little reminder, that it's all they want is our time. And so if you can get out with them, of course, read to them, but then also, just get out and it'll benefit, I think, everyone. All of us. Yeah.
Well, I started reading with your kids because I knew that it was the foundation that the relationship I have with my now adult kids was built on. And we know, and we support families reading together as kids become independent readers and into their adolescence and teenage years. But I also know that reading with your kids leads to cooking with your kids, leads to playing ball with your kids, leads to looking up at the sky with your kids. And like you were saying, our kids need us to connect with them, showing them that we can just shut off the world and give all of our attention to you. That's the greatest gift we can give to our kids, I think.
Yeah, very well said. I think that's true. To shut off the world. It feels like in the moment you can't, right? It feels like, but I have this, and this, and like I said, easier said than done sometimes. But I think you're right. If you can just shut off that world, and look up at the world together, you'll find it is really nice for everyone. So I totally agree.
You've have a creative career. I noticed on your website, you're a web designer and you paint. And so you've been a storyteller through a number of different mediums. How was it to tell this story in a picture book?
Yeah, so yes, that's a good way to put it. I feel like I've been creative in other avenues, but haven't written a story like this in a long time. And it was really fun just to start. I think I had a really great time just with the process. And I think because I was so inspired by my own children, and just right now we're so immersed in all these children's books, that it was fun and kind of easy to do, just because I felt like I knew the story that I wanted to tell. And so of course I needed to finesse it and make sure it was grammatically all correct and all of that. But in terms of just getting the story out on paper, it felt very natural, just because it was inspired by these true events that I had done with my children. And I felt really inspired, like I said, or passionate just to get the story out there. And, there are other books about cloud watching. But it was fun to kind of tell my point of view on it, and definitely incorporate that calming aspect of the whole process and activity as well. So it was really fun. I was really excited to do it. And then, I worked with this illustrator who's actually Ukrainian, and she really brought the story to life, which that part was really, really great to see. And she's very talented. So, that part was also, I really loved just seeing all the different illustrations come through and make it come to life.
That's wonderful. Have you caught the children's author bug yet?
I have. And so I'm trying to work on a second book. It is. Is that a thing? Cause I do feel it. I feel the bug. I feel like it's definitely been caught. So working on something next.
That's great. What do your kids think about the book as they're holding it and reading it together with you?
So they at first really loved it. But then I think I maybe pushed it in too hard. So my younger one said, I don't want to read mommy's book anymore, because we would read it a lot, because at first they were really excited, and the characters look a lot like myself and my oldest son, my 4-year-old. So he really loves it. He's definitely a deep feeler, and he's an empath. So when we read through it together, he just looks up at me and is very happy about it, and just feels really, really, I can tell he seems very calm and inspired and happy when we read through it together. And then my younger likes it too. they really like to go through the different pages and look at the different shapes and make the different noises. But then, yeah, I think my younger one, I pushed it too hard. So yes, I want to read something else.
Well, book 2 will have to feature characters that look like your second son.
That's what I'm thinking. Because I think maybe that's part of it. He's like, that's not me.
Yeah. Well, tell us where we can go to find out more about Cloud Wonders and find out more about you.
So you can go to my website. It's annalisebubes.com. And then it's available on Amazon's site and Barnes & Noble's site and Walmart, I believe. But my website has all of the links that that will take you to the different online stores. And then I also have on the website, there's a little like reading activity kit that you can download. So if you're like a parent or librarian or school teacher, like a preschool teacher, you can actually download the kit, and it just has different like activities you can do with kids related to clouds. Or it has some coloring pages that you can download and print. So that's something else you can find on the website. And then you can find me on social media. I only really have Instagram. I don't have much else yet. At Annalise Bubes. So it's just BUBS. And that's my handle. And yeah, that's everywhere you can find me and the book.
Annalise, thank you so much for sharing about Cloud Wonders, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jed. I really appreciate it. This was fun to chat about everything.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us from not too far from our beautiful studios here in Reedville. Our guest is here today to celebrate. Her new children's book is called Mulu and Naanu. Please welcome to the show, Tippy Bhan. How are you, Tippy?
I'm very well. How are you today?
Wonderful. Although, it's that the time in New England where the weather is just crazy.
That's true.
With daylight savings, the sun rises around 9 o'clock in the morning and it sets around 3 in the afternoon. And it's 80 degrees one day and minus whatever.
I know.
It's insane.
Fluctuates a lot. That's correct.
Yeah. So tell us about this great new book.
Okay. Mulu and Naanu is about the dynamic grandbaby and grandpa duo and their silly and hilarious adventures. So the book starts off when Mulu gets dropped off at his Naanu's place, who's his most favorite person, and he's very excited to be with him. And the fun starts. Starting off with, Naanu thinks now that Mulu is a big boy. He should do pee-pee and potty on his own potty chair. So he opens Mulu's diaper. And Mulu, being his naughty self, he sprays on Naanu's face and squeals with delight. Naanu ducks just in time to catch the flow. And then they have another adventure of Crawleroo and Peekaboo. So Mulu has spotted this yellow bedside table and he wants to explore it. So with Naanu close behind, they start crawling towards it at super baby speed. But midway through his mission, he notices that Naanu's not there. So he looks behind and cannot see Naanu. So he crawls backwards to find Naanu. And Naanu comes out of his hiding place and says, peekaboo. So Mulu loses his balance and rolls off to the side and squeals with delight. And they get so tired by the end of it that then they, cuddle together in a nice hug, which is so cute and adorable. And by the end of it, when it's time to leave, Mulu is very sad. He doesn't want to leave Naanu. He wants to stay whole day with Naanu. So he starts crying, because he's very close to Naanu. So Nanu, what Nanu does is, seeing this, he takes out a toy doggy from somewhere and gives it to Mulu. And Mulu's very happy about it, and he forgets about it. He forgets that, he's sad. He wants to be with Nanu. So he's very happy to leave with his best friend, the yellow doggy, and his mom. So through the illustrations and narrative in the story, you can see that both the characters are very close to each other. There's a special bond that they connect through. And on their day of adventure, they make their own tradition of this simple but funny activities, which is very priceless and memorable.
You're describing this book. Obviously, you wrote the book, so you're very familiar with it, but it almost feels like this was inspired by two real people.
That's correct. The book was actually inspired by my grandfather and my father. And growing up, I was very close to my grandfather. And, that was the best time of my childhood, spending time with my grandfather. It had such a meaningful impact on me. I am what I am today because of my grandfather. I was the happiest. He was my best friend. I could tell him anything. He was my rock. And we used to do a lot of fun things together. Like we used to go for these long walks. And, by the end of it, he used to treat us to something very sweet. And then we used to gather around and chat with each other, about anything and everything, over a cup of tea or coffee. And when I saw the same bond between Mulu and my dad, and the way they connected through their playful spirit, I had to talk about it. I had to write about it and share it with the whole world, because grandparents, they make such a difference in our lives. And I had to pay a tribute to them to give them credit for such beautiful things that they do for us. And another thing I would like to mention is my son. I had this idea in my mind. I wanted to write the story, but my son is the main driving force behind it. Because of his unwavering faith and support in me, Mulu and Naanu came to be. So my dream actually came true because my son believed in me, and that's how it happened. So.
Well, that is really wonderful, and it's a beautiful story of family and how important supportive family can be. So congratulations for, getting the book out there, but also congratulations on having such a wonderful supportive son and extended family.
Thank you very much. It is so important. Family makes such a difference, huge difference in your life. It makes you who you are. And I really feel that, especially for children, if they have a long, warm, supporting family, that it makes them, they grow up to be very strong, confident, and happy adults. So it's very important to have a good influence in your life, especially your parents and grandparents.
Yeah. I know we were very fortunate when my kids were young. My mom was with us, and both of my beautiful wife's family were with us, and close by. So my kids got to spend lots of time with their grandparents and had beautiful relationships with them. And my wife's mom is still with us, and they still have those great relationships. And it's such a blessing. And it's something when I was growing up that almost everybody had. We all, in my particular family, we lived, both sides of my family lived within a square mile of each other when I was very young. That doesn't happen very much anymore. No. And so I think, the families that do get to experience that and have extended family that's close by and supportive, what a great thing to celebrate.
That's true. I agree with you 100%. So I really feel that, if you have your grandparents around, it is not only do you form these lifelong bonds, but it's so important for you mentally, for both of them. Like I mentioned, for children, having this caring, safe environment makes them so secure and happy, and they can share anything with their grandparents, and plus it gives them a sense of identity, who they are. So it's very important for them. And on the other hand, for the grandparents, it gives them a purpose. They love to spend time with the children, and then they are a treasure trove of ancestral information. You can share anything and they would love to pass it on to their children. And personally, as I said, my grandparents made such a difference in my life, even when I'm like stressed out and I just have to close my eyes and think about them, and it kind of distresses me, you know. And I really learned so many important things from my grandparents. Mostly they taught me to be kind, and taught me good, healthy habits. I do yoga and I go for a walk. It's because of them. They instilled in me that taking care of yourself is so important. And mostly the very important thing I would like to mention is that they said you should take pleasure in simple things. Simple things is what should make you happy. So it's like I said, it's made such an impact in my life that I am what I am today, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, you should be. I'm curious. You know, we talk about books being mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors, and I'm wondering, what kind of conversations can a family that is not blessed with that close extended family nearby? So a family whose kids don't have the grandparents either still alive or close by and a big part of their lives. What kind of conversations do you think those people can have as they read this book?
See, the important thing is to spend time with your kids. So any person who's in your life, you know, you have a special bond with them. The idea is to spend quality time with each other, do fun things with each other, you know, so that you connect with them. And the kids want someone to be around, someone they can, you know, feel happy with, somebody they can share what's going inside their mind. Because I really feel if they feel that they have somebody, they feel appreciated and somebody's always there. They have that security, that they have that sense of belonging. So it can be anybody. But so that's the conversation you need to have with your children, that, you know, we are there for you. We can do fun things together. So let's make the most of it, do fun things. And it just takes simple things, you know, to connect with each other. It doesn't have to be major things. You really don't have to be somewhere or go somewhere, but you just can, inside your house, you can, you know, find such beautiful, simple things to do. You just have to connect. You just have to spend time with them.
I think you're right. I think chosen family is something that also we don't appreciate enough.
Exactly.
People that we choose to make as part of our family, and they can be very important and fill the roles that, you know, when the grandparents and the aunts aren't around, or even if they are, that chosen family can be a really yes. benefit.
Anybody, yeah.
You told me that your son was a big supporter and really helped make this dream come true. Had you always dreamed about being a children's author?
Yes, I have actually. Since I've been like a kid, I always wanted to write. And family has such an important value in my life. I always wanted to write about, you know, this topic. And it's just that somehow life just happens and things happen and you just can't concentrate. So, but then now I have a lot of time because my son is 23 years old. And though I have a small puppy, she's 22 months. So I just had a lot of time. And like I said, I do yoga, and it kind of really helped me focus on what I wanted to do, you know, and I just said one day, okay, it's the time and I can focus and I better write about it. And I wanted to, I mean, I thought this was the time. You just have to find that time in your life and you can concentrate and, you know, do things and make your dreams come true. And this is my dream, and this was the right time. And I said, let's go ahead with it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Will there be more books coming from you?
Definitely. See, there are more Mulu and Naanu adventures that have to happen, more fun things to do, many different places to explore, and many new characters they have to meet. So definitely there'll be another Mulu and Naanu in the future.
Tippy, tell us, where can we go to find out more about Mulu and Naanu and find out more about you?
You can go to my website. It's tippybhan.com. And you can find a lot about me, the book. And I do also have a lot of free coloring pages and fun activities, which they can download and, you know, have a good time. And that's the place to go, to my website.
We've had a wonderful time speaking to the author of Mulu and Naanu. Our guest has been Tippy Bhan. Tippy, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure, and thank you again. Thank you very much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, we also hope that you'll check out the other podcasts in our Reading with Your Kids podcast family. Guardians of the Games, a great collaborative storytelling project based on the extremely popular game of Dungeons and Dragons. You're going to love this show. It really is exciting. The first campaign, as I understand, has come to an end, so you can start listening at episode 1, listen all the way through and hear that first campaign. We also hope you will check out a brand new podcast. It's called Connecticut Book Festivals. The Connecticut Book Festivals podcast. We're celebrating amazing authors and the literary scene in the wonderful state of Connecticut. Both of those shows can be found wherever you find Reading with Your Kids, on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Like I said, wherever you find your podcasts. In fact, Good Pods, the Connecticut Book Festivals podcast, is number 15 in the Good Pods Books category. So congratulations to that show. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we'll start by thanking our guests. Tippy Bhan, be sure to check out Mulu and Naanu. Annalise Bubes, be sure to check out Cloud Wonders. And Madeline Claire Weiss, be sure to check out What's Your Story? I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking to the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.